So thanks for being here, Mike.
Of course.
So I just wanted to start out by, a lot of people may not know what Taylor Stitch is. Give us the elevator speech. What is Taylor Stitch?
Current day.
Current day.
Current day, Taylor Stitch is a predominantly men's clothing company based out of San Francisco. The main thing that differentiates us is about 2 years ago? 2 years ago, January, we started what we call the workshop, which is essentially we'd done a Kickstarter campaign, and it was really successful. And what we did was we decided how we should just build our own and start to do all of our new products through this. And we thought it would create a ton of customer engagement. As we started to grow, every single buy that we made kept getting more and more scary because it was like more and more cash outlay for every shirt, every pair of pants. And we said, why don't we put this on our customers and see if they like it. This Kickstarter thing really worked for us and create that negative cash conversion cycle. So we made that a main part of our business. We call it the workshop. So it's essentially our internal Kickstarter crowdfunding platform.
So how would you define your brand?
So the tagline that we use is responsibly built for the long haul. I grew up in Maine. My kind of point north was always LL Bean. I love the fact that I could walk in at 1 a.m. on a Friday night and know that I was going on a fly fishing trip at 7 a.m. the next morning, and there was somebody there that could help me pick the right flies, get the right gear I needed. It was like that kind of idea of they're always going to be able to help me, they're always going to stand behind their product, and they're always just going to be good people. And so that was we kind of took that and moved it to the West Coast, and like to think that we made the product a little bit better.
Great. Now, we talked when I was in San Francisco a few weeks back, or maybe it was longer than that now, and we're talking on the phone that, that's what you look like today.
Yeah.
So, but was that what was launched?
It's pretty much the opposite of what was launched.
So what happened? What happened in that?
So the original impetus for the business was my best friend and business partner went to a small school called Babson College. We studied entrepreneurship. We knew nothing, not a goddamn thing about making clothes, but his dad always brought back custom shirts from Hong Kong. And we became enamored with this idea that we wanted to make custom shirts. We're both 5'9", 175 pounds. We kind of saw ourselves as this perfect medium, if you will. And we couldn't find a shirt that fit us. He'd steal his pop's shirts, bring them up to school. Eventually, his pop gets mad and he's like, dude, you got to stop stealing my shirts. I actually have to wear those to work every day. He's like, you can get away with wearing lax shorts and, a polo shirt to class every day.
Right.
Like, I'll get you your own damn shirts. Like, stop it. And so we actually, the original impetus was a lot of what Seth is doing in Proper Cloth. It was that idea that we wanted to put custom shirts online. This is 2007-08. The financial crisis just happened. We moved to San Francisco. Nobody really wants to give two 22-year-old boys who don't know a goddamn thing about making clothes or the internet, money to go build a website and figure out how to put custom shirts. Like, I also think technology wasn't quite there yet. And so we just took it analog. We started, the first shirts we ever sold were at our buddy's bar over Bloody Mary's on a Saturday morning, just trying to figure out how to make shirts. We'd partnered with the oldest continuously operating shirt maker in the country out of Newark, New Jersey, and just started figuring it out. And so it was this very iterative move from custom shirts turned into ready-to-wear shirts, pop-up shops turned into full-time shops, turned into figuring out how to make an e-commerce site and drive traffic to it. And so we just solve problems. It's kind of like entrepreneurship 101 for me. It's it's not necessarily about what you know, it's about figuring out what you don't know.
Right, which is interesting. You say that last piece that I'm wondering, as you're started out with the custom shirts, and I know we talked that it wasn't quite working as you envisioned. Were you pivoting away from doing the custom shirts, or was it that you're going for more greener pastures? You saw a great opportunity, so I'm going to go there. So which was driving that more?
Yeah, it's more just there was a realization. We still do custom shirts.
Right.
1 or 2% of our business at this point, but we kind of look at that as the halo at the top of the pyramid, and so it wasn't as though we moved away from it. It's just that we supplemented it with something that our customers were coming in and talking to us and like, hey, I don't really want to wait 4 to 6 weeks for a shirt every time.
Right.
And there's a lot of guys that just don't need custom shirts. I mean, again, 5'9", 175 pounds. We made a shirt that fit that kind of crew of guys, and people started buying them.
Right.
It also, that buy now, wear now, just, if you think about custom versus the rest of the world, it's a very small portion. And so we just saw that hey, this is long term, we think it'll be a much larger market for us.
Right.
So we just started doing it that way.
So you had said when we talked earlier as well that, and I've seen some of the other interviews and videos with you, that you said you had to start a business because nobody was going to hire you.
Yeah, kind of like my best friend and I both kind of made those decisions early on at Babson that we'd probably be the worst employees anybody's ever hired. And so we,
Why is that? Why is that?
You know, a lot of it is just because we like always knew we wanted to start our own thing. You know, we kind of like always pushed up against the wall and tried to figure out like how are we going to break this thing down. You know, my father was always an entrepreneur. He's run a civil engineering company for the last since the day I was born. I kind of look back at that and I'm like,
Okay.
what the hell were you doing? You started a company literally like the day your first child was born, like in the same realm.
That's insane.
Yeah, and it's like you're going into the basement working like 13, 14, 15 hours a day, trying to figure it out, having left like a very steady job and solving that problem. I was like, you know, I always thought that was super admirable. And then, you know, so I did that. Like, I never really had a job. Like, I worked for him like a little bit, but you know, in the summers. But most of the summers, like, we started our own landscaping companies and house painting companies, and I'd get like all of my buddies to just come join. I was like, I'll figure out how to get it. I was like, do you guys really want to go work for like that terrible landscaper that's paying you like $8 an hour? I was like, we can go make like $15-20 an hour, and we're still undercutting all of the big places. And you know, at the end of the day, it was my mom was a landscape gardener and a landscape architect. So and my dad had a civil engineering company, so we looked very professional. We had like free dump trucks and backhoes. And we had free design services over here.
He had the whole setup.
The margin was awesome.
Why shirts?
I don't know what. I don't know.
Just like
just moving to San Francisco, there was not as much land to landscape.
Yeah. So why? Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that. Why the move all the way across the country, San Francisco?
Seemed like a good idea.
Yeah. That's a solid strategy.
Yeah, it was like completely blindly. I graduated in 07. We had two buddies that were 06, and remember we talked about it when we were all still at Babson. They moved out, and they kind of started talking smack, and they were like, "You won't come?" We said, "Yes, we will," and it went back and forth a few times, and finally, we bought plane tickets. You got to find us a place to live. So the first year, 5 guys moved into a 3-bedroom apartment at the top of Nob Hill, one of which actually had a legitimate paying job. And
well, that's good.
Yeah, so he had his own bedroom. The other two, we had what we called
bought the bedroom.
Yeah, we had what we called roommates.
Okay.
So Barrett and I lived in one, and we kind of started our own company. One of our buddies was starting a company called Idea Paint, and then another buddy was like a first-year assistant account manager at a big ad firm, making all of like $32,000 a year. So we were the the poorest kids in the nicest neighborhood in San Francisco.
Was it about being in the environment of kind of the Silicon Valley?
It was a little bit of that, and it was a lot of bit of just the beauty of the area. Like, we knew we wanted to be in a city, but we knew we wanted to be able to get out of a city, and like that actually ended up driving a lot of the lifestyle of like what the Taylor Stitch brand is as a lifestyle brand. Right. We have a national park in our backyard. It's like you can like 10 minutes and I'm over the Golden Gate Bridge on my bike, climbing up Hawk Hill. Like those are the things that kind of attracted us. Right. The reason that we moved out, you look back starting a clothing company, you might have wanted to move to LA or New York where it's like a little bit more dominant.
The fashion piece there.
Yeah. San Francisco's got Gap and North Face, and it's got a whole bunch of stuff, Levi's, a whole bunch of stuff that nobody really thinks about.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Now I know that on the inside of, I don't know if it's inside of all of your pants, but at least some of them are a map of San Francisco. Yeah. So what was the thought behind that?
Just a nice little branding piece, a nod to the home. Like we always like to think about the details we were just talking about before. Like
I got
you got it?
Yeah, I got.
There's that in the
this
box.
Is one of the boxes.
Nice. Even used. Looks like it came to
it
you.
is. I think it brought these pants, I think, actually.
So, like, basically what we did was we took an old vintage map that, we always like to harken back to a little bit of, like, yesteryear, what had happened, and use that for visual inspiration for us. And so this was just a point of that. It's a fun, like, aha moment when you get something and you don't know it's going to be there. It's like the same thing with, like, that little coin pocket that you have. Yeah. It's like finding those details that differentiate your product from everybody else's. And this, with the box, the reason we do it on the box is when it shows up at, a Google office or something like that, it's not just a nondescript black box. Somebody it's like, oh, that's cool. It creates a conversation piece that you might go up and ask your buddy, hey, what's Taylor Stitch?
Right. Yeah, I've had people, as you mentioned, I've got their pair of chinos on, and they have this little coin pocket here that I've never actually put anything in it. But when another pair of pants didn't have one in it, I was like, why doesn't it have this little pocket? I don't know what I'm supposed to do without this little pocket, even though I don't put anything in there.
Devil's in the details, baby.
I know. There's like, I hope all of them. I wanted to turn to the workshop because, as I mentioned, I've got a pair of chocolate chinos waiting, and I got another pair that I'd gotten some time ago. So you had mentioned that was partially a cash flow issue. You know, the customers pay before you're actually having to develop the product and put it into production. But is that the principal reason why you went to the workshop, or is it about a customer engagement, or how else does that play in?
So the first reason we kind of looked at it was for cash flow and just being like, hey, you know, retail businesses are cash intensive. You're going out and you're making buys, and if you look at where J.Crew is right now, they're $2 billion in debt. It was a lot of merchants making decisions that weren't led by what the consumer wanted, and not having that kind of engagement. And so, first and foremost, it was like, hey, we can de-risk a lot of the money that we need to put out by funding the first production run, knowing that our consumers are going to want this. So that was the first part of it. The next part is, it's such a great engagement engine. We launch new product every single week, and so every single week there's a new product, new hit. And if you think about the way consumer mind works, is if I, like, in January, dump an entire collection of 40 pieces on you and don't have anything new to show you from now until August when the next one comes out, like, you're going to lose interest really quick. You're not going to keep coming back to the website. And also, you don't have the disposable income. You might like 12, 15 pieces, and you might want to buy them, but you may end up only buying 2 or 3 because that's just in your mind, you already saw it. You might wait for discounts, promos, et cetera. And so what we kind of do is, like, every week we think about the workshop as not a promo but an exchange of value. It's like, we're going to give you 20% off this product. You're going to have to wait 6 to 8 weeks for it to come after you purchase it. It'll land when it's seasonally appropriate. Like, that's the other problem with, when you land swim trunks in January. Arizona is pretty much the only place that you can wear swim trunks in January.
Pretty close.
And even then, I don't think people think it's cold when it's 75 here.
Yeah, they do. My daughter's putting a jacket on when it's 80 degrees. It's freezing, Daddy. It's like, no, not even close.
It's funny how the human body kind of regulates to those temperature swings, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody runs around naked in San Francisco when it's 80 degrees.
I was there in the summer with 60s.
Yeah. No, it's getting nice right now, but. Yeah, so there's that obvious cash flow. We create this perpetual engagement. Every week you're coming back to check on something new. Right. And we keep you we get you to hit you with emails, hit you with social posts, all those sort of things allow us to engage our customers. And it also allows them to engage with the brand in a way that's very special. Right. So they're saying, like, hey, like, I feel like I'm a part of this because I'm voting on what's going to be made with my dollars.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed watching that, and like I said, I've already bought a couple things. I'm sure I'll buy some more. Hopefully you'll have some others out here as well. So you're talking about the social media piece, and I get the kind of daily or frequent kind of emails, and I noticed, particularly recently, but just over the whole time of my engagement with your company, a real focus on kind of what you might say is kind of corporate social responsibility, but just your social kind of investment that you do in your company, and then most recently, I know you might talk about this, the kind of the multi-brand work that you're doing in terms of those who are impacted by the 2 hurricanes in Texas and in Florida. So how does talk a little bit about what you're doing in that regard, particularly with water and conservation and so forth, and how that fits into who you are and your brand.
Yeah, so going back to growing up for me, it's always been, I grew up in the outdoors. I've been a fly fisherman, a mountain biker, a hiker, like a camper my entire life. And the more you grow and the more you kind of realize about the clothing industry after having been in it, like, it's a scary thing. Right. It's labeled as the second most pollutive industry in the world behind oil and gas, which is crazy and mind blowing at the same time. Cotton is an incredibly thirsty crop, and the problem that we kind of saw was, as a small kind of nascent business in the clothing world, you are beholden to what's available to you. We're going and buying rolls of cotton, rolls of fabric, and making shirts out of it, and you can't do that custom stuff that you want. And, there's been a few things happening in the world is, a lot of the big manufacturers are starting to go downstream and lowering their MOQs, minimum order quantities. So smaller companies can kind of come up and start doing more custom stuff, start doing more full package stuff.
Right.
They're also like, everybody's kind of having a little bit of an aha moment right now, which is nice. I mean, we've kind of like always had our eye on it. We just haven't been able to do what we wanted to. And, for us, it's really our way of like giving back, and I think it's a necessity. I think not only does the consumer, if you look at Nielsen ratings, the consumer wants to know everything about their product. In 2014, 50% of people cared. In 2015, 58% of people cared. And in 2016, it was up to 70. Like, we're not going back to the days where it was like okay for a 9-year-old in Bangladesh to make your shirt. And like, God willing, we shouldn't.
Right.
And so that having that transparency, I think, is such an important thing to, the business needs to hold itself accountable. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to like grow up into that. And our hope is that we're at this size that we are super malleable, and we can go and we can, as we start to do more custom fabric, we can move all the way over to recycled knits. By middle of next year, I think every single knit that we make will be a recycled and upcycled fiber, maybe blended with like a little bit of Tencel too for softness.
Right.
It's an important thing to me. Making sure that, like, we care about like not only the places but the people that are involved. And we live in a global economy. There's one world we have to take care of, and I don't think we're going to end up living on Mars anytime soon. Nor do I really want to.
Yeah. So throughout your kind of career, in doing this, what have you learned that you didn't, like that was the biggest thing that I've learned that I wasn't expecting when I started this business?
From a social perspective or just in general?
Yeah, just in general.
The biggest challenge that we've kind of had, or that I've had personally, is just managing people.
Right.
Growing the business. Like I said, I'd kind of always be the worst employee, and I've always seen myself as more of an executor, less of a manager, and just making that transition and learning how to manage and learning how to inspire. Because it was easy when it was myself and my two co-founders that started the business, because there's like 3 idiots in a room trying to figure things out, and you can bash each other's head in, and you can't have the same fall down screaming matches that my best friend and business partner had, because they were so impassioned.
Right.
Like there's some time when you like kind of look up and you're like, oh man, there's other people in the room. We can't do this anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
That transition was definitely a challenging one. Like the kind of way that we thought about it was surrounding ourselves with great advisors that had kind of gone through it, because I look at things both ways. We never went and worked in a corporate structure at all.
Right.
And so we didn't have any of those kind of rules and regulations, which is good and bad. I'm not saying like, going and working in corporate is a bad thing and learning, but like on the other side, we also didn't have that holding us back to think about like, okay, well, we have to do something this way. It's like, no, we think that we're relatively intelligent human beings. We can go figure it out however the hell we want to.
Right.
And it might actually like make some good and make some change.
So you mentioned overseeing people, and I should say that you have one of our graduates from our retail and consumer science program, Darren Brown.
Yanked him out of a big corporate.
Yeah, we've gone to Gap, and then that's actually how I found out about you guys. I saw Darren; they got a new job, and so I hope that he's a good employee there.
Yeah, it's like anything. It takes time to get somebody like that out of.
Yeah.
It's like you're so used to doing this thing this way.
Right.
It's like you need to think like we have this crazy workshop thing, and we don't do seasons, and we like have new product coming out every week. You have to like totally rewire the way somebody thinks. But somebody like Darren is incredibly intelligent and like is up for that challenge.
Right. So talk to it a little bit about this. I know when you're kind of at the beginning phases of this, I know you've got this partnership and relationship in Japan. Mm-hmm. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in Japan and how that fits into your kind of longer term strategy for your company?
Yeah, so the way like we think about things in the same way Patagonia, or Rose Marcario specifically thinks about things, is the bigger you get, the more impact you can make. And that's like the conversation that her and Yvonne had over the course of time. Was like Yvonne was like, I don't want to make any more clothes, and Rose was like twisted it and was like, but what if we just make better clothes and other people start buying those instead of like the X, Y, or Z crap that falls apart and goes into a landfill?
Right.
And Yvonne was like, I get it. And so our partnership with Japan, it was actually a super random thing. They were It's a large publicly traded strategic that was looking to, bring great brands to Japan and eventually to China, Taiwan, and Korea. So kind of the whole Asia Pacific region. And so their investment banker literally walked into our office because he was working with the Huckberry guys who we share an office with.
Right.
And he was like, "Do you guys who's the best brand that you guys love?" And like, we also happen to be right there. Like, have you guys talked to the Taylor Stitch guys? And so it was this very natural thing. But as of a month and a half ago, we have a shop open in Kamakura, which is about an hour and a half south of Tokyo.
Yeah, okay.
And next year we'll open in Tokyo, and they're starting to grow the e-com business out too. So it's this beautiful partnership where, like, I don't know if anybody's spent time in Japan, but they take care of brands better than we can take care of our own brand, probably.
How do you mean? How do you mean by that?
There's an attention to detail and a loyalty
Okay.
that I've never seen anywhere else in my life. Like, one of the guys that is one of the brand managers there, we have two like main fellas. He's kind of like the second in command. He looked at me and he goes, "I will die with this brand." And I was like, "I'm not sure if I will."
Intense.
Yeah, I was like, "That's some samurai
I'll follow
stuff."
the sword on this
yeah,
one?
Yeah, basically. And I was like, there might be a little bit of like a lost in translation here, but I was like, I dig it.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it's a pretty, and there's, they just do everything. It's actually kind of a fun like social experiment. You like go into a store and just like move something a little bit, and like as soon as you walk away, they'll come up behind you and just null it back to 90.
Now, don't say that. That's a little bit like my mother-in-law in my house. So. It's the other way around. She's moving and I'm moving it back.
Yeah. But yeah, and so they just like take care of everything, and sometimes it's to a fault,
Right.
where they like replicate everything. Like a perfect was like I sent email, and at the end of it I said, "Let me know if there's anything else you need," and like that "let me know if there's anything else you need" ended up on like a huge translation board, like at our launch party about social and environmental responsibility, which is kind of amazing. But
now, was that just a kind of fortuitous conversation that happened, or was there a planned, like, we want to go to Japan?
we've always wanted to go to Japan. I mean, Japan was 50 basis points of our business. It was
Right.
minuscule, and I think that for us it's an amazing move because the Japanese and the California culture, I mean, they
Right.
merge so well, and immediately the Taylor Stitch brand now feels exponentially bigger. It is international. I mean, it's literally a thing, which makes it feel, it just like opens it up to a lot of new customers. Like, it's the same thing. It's like a bigger version of the coin pocket.
Right.
You start to see like, oh, Taylor Stitch is in Japan. Like, that's pretty cool. And like people will like you just because you're in Japan.
So now I'll just buy it because you're actually in
we're
Japan.
we're big in
Even
Japan.
though I'm not in Japan, but
Yeah.
I'll buy it just because you are there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this thought, and because it's like, oh, if the Japanese like it, I should probably like it too.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
everybody wants to be on
That's
the winning
actually
team.
the only reason that I bought it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was because of that.
You heard we were going.
I
to
heard
Japan.
you were going to Japan.
Through the
I'd
grapevine?
Get on the bandwagon early.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You say it's really. I can say it's all about the coin pocket.
No, well, it's partially about the coin pocket. It's partially there. So what's next for Taylor Stitch? Where are you going next? And kind of where, I introed this whole idea of where retailing is going and so forth. And so how do you fit in, and where do you see you kind of going? As retailing is changing, how are you kind of flying with that too?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many options. I mean, we like to preserve optionality on a lot of different stuff. I mean, I think for Taylor Stitch to grow, we need to keep doing a lot of the same stuff that we're doing right now, which is make great product, treat our customers well, make sure we deliver stuff on time, since the workshop's a big piece of that.
Right.
And just push on the e-com, like continue to acquire customers the same way we always have. The optionality that we see is Japan and the Asia Pacific is going to be a fun adventure.
Right.
Continuing to grow that. We've literally dipped our toe in women's. We've seen great early signals there, and we think there's a lot of growth there. I mean, naturally, women shop a lot more than men.
Right.
Men are more brand loyal, but like the way we kind of look at it is, if you go online and you look at a Facebook ad, you look at our Facebook ads, the guys are trolling it, saying like, "Do you even camp, bro?" And the women are tagging 4 of their friends and saying, "I love this." Just like, guys, like, we really need to be so aggressive. It's a little support.
Exactly.
So, we think that's another huge opportunity. we think the workshop could actually be a bigger, like to what you'd mentioned a little bit earlier, this idea of launching new brands and having kind of a portfolio of brands. We actually just recently soft launched Civic.
Yeah,
we
I saw that.
We haven't moved it up to the top of our brand like navigation and header yet, but
So what is Civic? So
Civic is, the way we describe it, is merino in motion. Merino is this amazing naturally performing fiber, but it's always been reserved for the mountains. You think of merino and you immediately think Ibex, Icebreaker, Patagonia, Smartwool, et cetera,
Right.
which are all reserved for going out and doing things in the great outdoors.
Right.
And like when I'm not wearing a button-up shirt, we actually make some merino button-up shirts, but I wear a merino t-shirt most days of the week.
Right.
And like, it's great. Like it's cool when you're hot when you're cool. Like never stinks. It's just it's a great product.
That's
and
a positive.
we want to make it like you don't have to wash it for like 12 days straight.
That fits
My
into the
fiance
guy's
thinks
cycle.
it's gross. She's like, yeah, and I was like, smell it. Like you literally, it doesn't smell. It's like it is.
I'll trust you on that
yeah,
one.
it's naturally antimicrobial. But so like we were essentially using that as like this active transportation people for whether you're commuting by bike, walking, public transportation. It's kind of like talking more about like the fabrics of our cities. Like if you need to get on like planes, trains, automobiles, like we have guys who are like, I had to do a 7-day sales trip across like, I think it was actually the entire Southwest.
Right.
He's like, I wore the same shirt and pants every day, and I was like, that's awesome.
You could pull it off.
Yeah, so if you pull it off, and that's like, but it was all of our merino stuff, and so that's essentially what Civic is.
Great.
It's that.
So we got a lot of students in the audience here. So if ask you, what one or two kind of key pieces of advice would you give those students who are thinking about, and I know a lot of students do, thinking about, I want to try to start something myself. What piece of advice would you offer them?
The biggest thing I always say is don't be afraid of failure, because you're going to fail at some point, and it's not like I'm not talking like full failure, like business is underground. But
Right.
You make decisions and you have to take chances. And all of entrepreneurship it's a calculated risk-taking exercise.
Sure.
And so, it depends where you are in life. Like for us at 22, we could afford to go and, share a room with another guy, and it was an extension of college.
Right.
And, eat Trader Joe's pizzas every day. And like, that was it. Like look back at 32 with like a fiance, an impending wedding, like probably gonna have a kid, like little different story. Like she wouldn't allow me to go back to like paying $600 a month for rent, in San Francisco, which was cheap, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And doing that, so it's just finding those like the right times and knowing that like at the end of the day, like people are gonna want to hire you, whether you go and start and fail a company or or not.
Right.
Like I recently spoke at our Babson does an MBA program out in San Francisco, and people are like, well, what happens? It's like, it's 2 years of your life. Like we're gonna be working till we're 80 anyways. Now we're gonna live forever.
Yeah.
It's like what is 2 years gonna do? And like from me, at least me as an employer perspective, like I love those people that are like out there being like, hell, I'm gonna go give this a shot.
Right.
And you will learn more in the even if you fail in the 1 or 2 years of failure than you ever could imagine in all of like I learned it in like the first years like than what I learned in college, than what I learned like what I could have learned going and working like a big corporate for 5 years, because you get exposed to so much, and at the end of the day like your foot's to the fire, like nobody cares about it more than you, and like all the risk is on you. Like like that's pressure. But like that will make you a better employee potentially if you end up going that way too.
Great. Well, I wanted to end with some questions here to kind of dig in maybe a little bit into your personal kind of perspective of things. So, 5 questions here for you. So, one is, what is your favorite type of food?
This is easy. Brick oven pizza.
Brick oven pizza.
We just went to this awesome Neapolitan pizza place in San Francisco.
Yeah.
It's this guy that I think he won a whole bunch of pizza awards in New York.
Yeah.
He's like a total like tatted up hipster, and he just shut it down. Like nobody knew where he went, and he popped back up like 3 years ago in San Francisco, and he literally kind of has this corral that he goes in. There's just this huge pizza, this huge marble countertop, and it's just him and there's 6 pizzas. They're all pretty much the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you can have pizza and beer and wine, and that's it.
Sounds good.
It was amazing.
What made you laugh the hardest most recently?
2 things. My buddy just got a brand new Australian Shepherd puppy, and we were over hanging out the other day, and it literally just climbed out of, it's in like one of those moving pens.
Oh, yeah.
So it doesn't pee all over the floor everywhere.
Oh.
And it climbed up and then just climbed out and jumped. And it was just like, my buddy was like, I walked home like out of the shower the other day, and the dog was out of the pen. I was like, how did it get out of this? And then he put it back in it. Yeah, he just figured it out while he was in the shower.
Very entrepreneurial.
Yeah, so there was that I thought that was hilarious. And then we were walking down the street on Sunday, and like, I'm not a fantasy football player or anything, but I don't know anybody that like follows Barstool Sports. Like,
right.
This was like a classic. A kid was sitting outside of a bar on Sunday morning when all of his buddies were in. He had lost his fantasy football league the previous year. So he was outside with a big sign that said, "I suck at fantasy football." And he was giving free shoe shines all day. Like that was his punishment.
Ouch, that was
yeah,
bad.
that was his punishment. Like outside of like one of the biggest like sports corners in San Francisco. And his buddies just made him wear it on the chin.
Good for them. So what book would you most recommend?
Not a big reader, but the one I did read most recently that I really enjoyed was the Patagonia is the Responsible Company.
Oh, right.
That Yvon Chouinard wrote. I think it just, there's obviously some self-serving stuff in there for them, but like, at the basis point of it all, like really makes you think a lot about like conscious capitalism,
right.
And like what the next level of business, because they are like doing well and doing good are not mutually exclusive things. Right. I see them as mutually inclusive, and you have to, not only for the world, but for your employees and for the consumers. Right. I think everybody cares about that. If you look at, what the new age of employees want. Right. They want to be at a place that cares. Right. And like, God willing, like that's how it should be. They don't want to work for like the big soulless company.
Right. What is the one thing that you have never done that you would really like to do?
I want to take my father to Russia to Kamchatka, Russia, to go fly fishing for the most monster rainbow trout in the world. Yeah, that's great. And then, what title of a real movie best describes your life? This kind of goes back to the last one, but A River Runs Through It.
A River Runs Through It. Because,
like life is, I've kind of always thought of it like, it's chaotic.
Right.
At the end of the day, like, that river's kind of like church. Right. When you go, you can clear your mind, and it actually is probably some of the most creative, like thought-provoking times I have is on the river, because you're just standing there and there's no music playing, there's no nothing. You're, a lot of times you're by yourself. You might have, there might be a guide or a buddy around you, but there's a lot of personal time to think about things right there.
No doubt. Well, great, Mike. Thank you very much. Before we let you go, wanted to open it up for any questions that you might have for Mike, and I think we just have the one mic over here on the right, I believe.
Let's see it.
If you got any questions, come on up to this mic right over here. Got to be somebody's got to come. Come on.
I can't see anything. Great, how are you?
Hello, Megan.
Welcome up.
Hi, thank you so much for being here today. My name is Megan Birch, and I'm currently a senior at the University of Arizona. So, what do you foresee as the retailing industry's biggest challenge? And what can I, as a future retailer, do to rise above that challenge?
The biggest challenge that I see right now is that the shift from wholesale to direct business. You see a lot of big companies struggling with it, and I think there's that, and how do you get consumers to your brand in a new and meaningful way, and getting them to engage. And so, I think marketing is a huge piece of that, is to try and figure out all right, the traditional model is a broken one. There used to be a playbook for retail. There used to be a playbook for apparel, and that playbook has been thrown completely out the window. And so that playbook right now is being completely rewritten, and it's a challenge. So trying to figure out how to engage with consumers in a scrappy yet authentic way because there's a lot of people who are paying a ton of money to engage with consumers, and I think it works, but it hasn't been proven that it's profitable. If you look at, like the Bonobos of the world, they're kind of like just breaking even right now after having spent $140 million in venture capital. So, I think trying to find helping build true authentic brands and connecting with a customer based on what that customer wants, I think is the most important thing that people can kind of focus on bringing.
Is there an authentic brand that you look at and say, that's somebody that I admire, that company that I admire?
I think it's Scale Patagonia.
Yeah.
I think it's Scale Patagonia has done an incredible job over the years, like staying true to who their customer is. I think Nike, they're still pretty damn cool.
All right.
I've dug into exactly what portion of Nike sales come from what, but they've done a really amazing job as a brand, keeping, they have this halo product that always, is always cool. It's always new, it's always fresh. And then, I'm sure they still sell a lot of the more lower end stuff too.
Right.
But.
Any other questions? No?
Hey.
Long walk. Just stand in line if you want to stand in line back here.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name's Albert. I came down here from actually Arizona State to hear you guys talk today. So,
Thank you for
thank
coming.
you. Yeah.
yeah. And my question to you is, you talked about the 9-year-old in Bangladesh making your product. You think a lot of people don't see that supply chain slavery is such a real thing still in today. So a company such as Patagonia, they do this thing where they're always super transparent about their business model to kind of address, hey, this is how we're helping the environment. Like you said, cotton's very wasteful. So what ideas have you implemented or wanting to implement in terms of ethics and addressing that problem of supply chain slavery and just making things more sustainable?
Absolutely. So we're kind of in this whole overhaul of our supply chain right now. Historically, we've done a lot of stuff with small sew shops in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Spain, Portugal, and there's a ton of easy transparency around there. It's almost like we didn't need to talk about it. As we've kind of grown, we've outgrown a lot of those places, and we're starting to move some product to Asia. And so a lot of what we're doing is we're digging in deep to say okay, are these factories paying prevailing wages? What are they doing with their wastewater? What certifications do they have around? 3 kind of main ones we look at are Okotex 100, Blue Sign, and GOTS, which have a lot about wastewater treatment, toxins, organic textiles, things of that nature. And then a lot of what we do is we're going to take that and kind of make that very transparent on our website. So we haven't dug into it much, but we're building out this whole program called Wild Forever, which is much longer conversation, but the idea of it is, protecting our people and places through through education, both on the environment and social matters. And so what we're doing is we'll have a Centers of Excellence page, which talks about each one of our factories, what they're doing, and then what we'll do is we're going to actually build funds based on that. A perfect example is our Yosemite shirt we made was a lot less expensive to make in China. We look at that and we say all of that margin profile increase is awesome, but we don't need all of it. What can we actually do to give back to these communities? It's and actually do it from a development perspective. I look at the kind of the one-for-one model in a lot of cases, and I think that it's pretty broken. Because I'm much more of a teach a man to fish than give a man a fish sort of guy.
Yeah.
And so we want to actually say what does this community need? If it needs bikes for people to get to work, then let's provide those, but we don't want to just give them. We're going to work with someplace like the World Bicycle Relief Foundation that then teaches them how to care for and maintain them so that they just don't end up in a trash heap 6 months down the road. So those are a few of the initiatives. From a raw material standpoint, the biggest thing we're trying to move into is using as much recycled and upcycled material as possible. Thing that was kind of staggering to me is I think it was between 80 and 85% of all clothing donated still ends up in a incinerator or a landfill. And about 85 to 90% of it is actually recyclable. So trying to figure out, we actually partnered with this awesome company in Spain of all places that can say there's jeans, they have a natural weft and an indigo warp. And so you can actually shred that down and separate those two fibers and respin them into a fabric that's like that specific color. So with a certain amount of poundage of waste, you can hit Pantone colors, which is pretty cool. And so doing things like that, looking at recycled nylon, there's a lot of cool stuff happening. Like Patagonia did it around using recycled fishing nets to make board shorts and things of that nature. So just like partnering with manufacturers that know that stuff that, we're like one step removed as the brand from being able to see what's happening. We're actually working with a really cool sourcing agency on some stuff out of Hong Kong, and they're at ground zero of everything cool that's happening because they see it. Like they're approached by all sorts of factories, all sorts of raw materials suppliers and providers that are doing the like much more renewable and recycled stuff. Just trying to push as much there to low. Like the three main things we focus on from raw materials is lowering water, chemicals, and pesticides. So it's kind of like the three main things that like cotton focuses on, and I think like 70 or 80% of clothes are made out of cotton right now.
Great.
Can I have a quick follow-up?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
So since you're kind of in the textile, do you think a lot of traditional retailers are missing the mark of addressing this problem by becoming a new age in this 21st century age of retailing? The traditional is just make low, sell high, make a profit off it. But these days with the technology we have, the Internet of Things, everything's exposed. Companies will know instantly that if they're doing something wrong, it's going to be on Yelp, it's going to be on Facebook, and all of a sudden their brand's ruined. So do you think kind of the demise of traditional retailers are just dying off because they're refusing to address this problem? They're so stuck in their old ways?
I think that they're trying to address the problem. I think it's just a long road. Like we sat down with the global head of sustainability at Levi's and had him come in and speak at our company just for like a lunch. And I think a lot of them are doing their best. I think that some of them don't care for sure, but it's hard. It is a much harder move for a company like Levi's. Like if Levi's just turned around tomorrow and said, "I want to make all organic cotton," they'd use all the organic cotton in the world, and they still wouldn't do it, and like the organic cotton prices would go through the roof. There's certain things that you can't do, and I think that will always be a challenge for them. As being Patagonia still says that we're all polluters. We're not living in like a net zero world here. We just need to do I think every little bit is better, and the more that everybody can kind of like continue to be like a little bit better here and there, and like continue to strive for better, and like set goals and work towards them, we do it. But yeah, it's a challenge because a lot of consumers will look at something as a campaign and less of a lifestyle that like a big company is doing. Those like the consumer's intelligent; they kind of can see through those things, and as much as a company can kind of try and say like, okay, we're working towards this. It's like, well, will you ever get there?
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah, thank you for the questions.